Whose idea was this?
You know, golf is a pretty interesting sport, often touted as a pretty leisurely activity to do. A typical golf game consists of 18 holes with the occasional elusive 19th hole, but depending on where you live and how much you're willing to spend, it's not exactly a cheap hobby to get into. Smaller, local courses usually are in the $36 to $61 range per round. More expensive courses, such as the Torrey Pines in San Diego and Pebble Beach, range from $71 for twilight games up to $495 per round. On top of that, the equipment really isn't that cheap either. Clubs range from $200 to $400 for cheaper sets, and $800 to $1,000 for higher-end clubs. Depending on branding and material used, the higher end could easily be in the thousands. Golf balls, depending on quality and how many layers and desired amount of spin you're looking at, can be about $15 to $60 for about 10 to 15 balls. Shoes, around $63 to $72 on average. A golf club, $10 to $25. So, to be all ready for a round or two of golf, the low end you're looking at about $324. High end, easily be $1,652. So depending on how quickly you're going to improve and how often you're going to play, you're going to be pretty invested in this sport. So now that we're all thoroughly enlightened on the subject of golf, what does this have to do with government waste? Well, actually quite a bit. There are multiple instances of government stepping in to help with golf, of which I'll name a few. In Sioux Falls, South Dakota, $5 million from the FAA was spent to renovate a golf course in their city. $45,000 was spent by NASA for experiments on the International Space Station that will examine a variety of coatings and metals used in golf. In 1995, the Pentagon announced it would spend $5.1 million to build a new 18-hole golf course at Andrews Air Force Base in suburban Maryland, which, by the way, already has two. Golf Digest reported that there are 19 military golf courses around Washington, D.C., so why bother building a new one? One Pentagon official was quoted as saying, "A lot of golf gets played out there. Saturday mornings, people are standing on top of each other." Forget about more pressing matters in the news like global warming and reducing your carbon footprint. The government's got more important things to worry about, like how are we going to get around a golf in when people are standing on top of each other? In fact, according to Mint.com and Salon, there are 234 golf courses that the Defense Department maintains around the world. How much do we spend on them? Well, apparently that's classified. And since they're maintained by the Defense Department, we're not allowed to use them. Though, after doing a little bit of research, it's not exactly hard to find out how much they've spent on these things. The list goes on and on, from what I could see, and I didn't even get into the presidential rounds of golf that go on, which, depending on who's in office, the media either complains about to no end or says absolutely nothing about. But, like I said, I digress. Today I'm going to focus on another golf course that's not even in the US. It's in British Columbia, a little place called Abbotsford. Why did I focus on this little city? Well, I was a little bit bored, and from all the examples I just gave, it's pretty clear that the US government has got their own problems with golf. But seriously, compared to the previous listings of offenses, this one seems rather tame. The city of Abbotsford gave a one-time grant to the Ledgeview Golf Club to help keep it afloat. What does that all boil down to? Well, it's about $65,000 for 1 year's worth of rent and $50,000 for course capital improvements. The golf course, which is maintained by the Ledgeview Golf Society, had run the course for nearly 34 years, and over the last 2 years, from about 2009 to 2011, it had done poorly and needed a little boost. The council felt rather confident in asking for this reasonably small amount, I assume, due to this good track record, and it had managed to stay on budget for the first 4 months of 2012. To give you an idea of how reasonable a request this is, looking at the rates on their site, about $30 to $65 a game, depending on when and who is playing, you're looking at about 1,770 games to 3,834 games being played over the course of a year. With a population of 123,865 people, as of 2006, about 1 to 3% of the population would need to play one game of golf over the course of a year to help recover the grant. The grant obviously helped since the course is still open today. So why did this story in particular get so much negative lighting on the internet? I mean, I guess from the examples I just gave above of how much money they needed to make. They really didn't need to do a grant, seeing as one good year's of performance would basically cover it all. So, what was the reason? Well, from what I found on most blogs, this was the statement that was given.
The city of Abbotsford, British Columbia, handed a $115,000 one-time grant to a struggling municipal golf course, claiming its problems stem in part from poor weather. In a report, city staff said that good weather was among the things being worked on to turn it around.
So, from what I could see, that quote was either taken grossly out of context or was in another article I wasn't able to find. The quote from the article I found said it had done poorly due to economic recession, poor weather last year, and an overall decline in the industry. I really doubt that they had plans to try to improve the weather. But before I started looking into this, reading that, and just my imagination ran wild, as I guess the rest of the internets did. I mean, think of the headlines that could have come out if they were actually serious about this. Ledgeview Golf Society barters with God for better weather, or Canadian weather machine saves golf course, or golf course consults witch doctors on weather manipulation, and on and on and on. If Canadians really did have a weather machine, I think they could find a much better use for it than saving some golf course. I mean, look at the 2016 general election for the United States. Seeing how that's going, I wouldn't be surprised if a giant ice wall came up between the US-Canadian border. I mean, come on, we've had several viable options aside from what we've been left with in terms of candidates. My guess is as soon as everyone in Canada saw us finally whittle down to choose either between Trump or Hillary as president, when we finally choose one, we're going to summon a great ice giant wall like I said earlier and keep us all out. That way, when the country really starts falling apart and we beg to get in, they'll have either one of two responses. You elected King Oompa Loompa and things didn't go so well for you? Well, that's just too bad, eh? Or, oh, Hillary not working out too well for you? You mean someone that has a problem with lying and dodging the law wrecked your country? That's too bad, eh? I feel like I'm dealing with an alcoholic who simply refuses to admit that he is one. Do this up. Fat man, little coat. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, want to see something improve, consider donating to my Patreon. A couple bucks a month goes a long way. See you soon.